some of the music that I was playing. My topic that I'll be discussing for my senior project is domestic surveillance policy. And that might be some complicated words to anyone who's not familiar with it, but basically that is the government's ability to monitor your phone calls, your emails, your text messages, look through your webcam and spy on you when you think you're in the privacy of your own home. And it's a little bit scary, but today our federal government has the ability to collect 200 million text messages every single day, and they have the ability to analyze 76 million automated text messages. So that means missed call alerts that you receive as a text message. That means bank messages that your bank might send you about, can you reply yes to this message to, confirm making this purchase. That also includes, like, if I'm going to come over to your house later and I don't know where it is, and you send me your address, it will create a link that I can open with either Google Maps or Apple Maps, depending on what I have, and they can track me and my location through that. In addition, they have the ability to collect all of your online communications from any tech company that you use, everything from Facebook to Yahoo, which I don't think many people above the age of 50 use anymore. Twitter, all of your tweets, your DMs. So when you're sliding into those DMs, you're also sliding into the DMs of the government too. They also have the ability to collect your phone call records. And thankfully, they can't listen in on your phone calls in most cases, except if you're in, like, the Bahamas. So I'm sure they'd love to learn about what kind of margaritas you like on vacation. All of this information gets stored at a $2 billion center in Utah. And it costs the federal government about $2 billion every year to run this center. They can store all of the information that they collect. And it's stored in databases which can even be accessed by foreign governments like the United Kingdom. In addition, right now the federal government has the ability to search your home and take pictures inside of your home without any prior notification. They don't have to tell you until months later. The only good part about that is that they can't seize any property. Okay. Dealing with this. And in addition, they have the FBI right now has the ability to send you a letter and demand a range of personal information from you, including, like, what hotels you stay at, your apartment lease records, your internet history. And the worst part about this is that it's overseen by a very secretive court most Americans have never heard of, known as the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court rarely, if ever, denies surveillance requests, and I'm going to cover a few statistics on that in a second. The judges for this court are also chosen completely unilaterally by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So right now, a pretty conservative-minded justice known as John Roberts. The FISC, they also approve bulk collection warrants, which means that these are not warrants that apply to a certain individual who might have a connection to terrorism. This means every AT&T customer, every Verizon customer, everyone in the 978 area code, and so on. In addition, there are some laws, such as FISA Amendments Act Section 702, where this court has no say in the targets. They only have say in how they collect information, but they can't even follow up to see if the government is following the procedures that they agreed to. In addition, Congress has less oversight, and many members of Congress don't know how these programs work, and many of them found out how these programs were working through the Snowden leaks, which is a little bit scary considering Congress is the body that approves these programs year after year. So, a few statistics about the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. In 2012, they saw 1,856 applications to conduct surveillance. They modified 40 of those applications. One application was withdrawn by the government. Can anyone tell me how many applications they rejected? Stuff. Two. I got two. Anyone else?
No.
Zero. Who said zero? Jeff?
Yeah.
Well, of course, you saw me doing my trials, but yes. They rejected 0 applications. So this is supposed to be an oversight body that is designed to keep the government in check, but yet they're really more like North Korea's Congress, where they just rubber stamp everything that comes to them. So which laws currently allow for this? Well, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is the one that created the secretive court, and the processes that this court operates with. The USA Freedom Act, which is a bill that this past summer replaced the United States Patriot Act. Nothing really patriotic or freedom-esque about these laws. This ended the bulk of that phone record collection program. There are still many cases where the government can collect phone records in a bulk amount. In addition, this bill made no changes to the national security letters, which are those invasive letters the FBI can send unilaterally. And they also made no changes to the sneak and peek warrants. Yes, they are actually called sneak and peek warrants that I mentioned earlier, about how the government can enter your home and take pictures of stuff inside your home without any notification until after. In addition, there's the FISA Amendments Act, which came in 2008. This allows for the government to collect your communication data right from the government, the communication infrastructure. So anytime an email bounces to a server in the process of being sent, even if I'm just sending an email to Mr. Barr about college stuff right now, it might bounce to a server in Canada or all the way over in Russia. In addition, there's a few executive orders that were signed by the Bush administration, and those executive orders changed how the government can share your information. They used to not be able to share between agencies, but now they can without really any kind of restriction. In addition, these executive orders also expanded NSA authority to cover domestic citizens. The NSA did exist in a lot of these programs that exist, but only for international targets prior to the 2000s. Now, why is surveillance policy an important topic? It's a conversation about our rights and our liberties as Americans. The Fourth Amendment is arguably what we fought the revolution over, to quote Ron Paul. The Fourth Amendment protects you from unreasonable search and seizure, and it basically guarantees you a right to privacy. It also affects how our government treats us. Do we want to live in a society like we've been living in, or do we want to live in the Big Brother society where there's no freedom and you're constantly being monitored everywhere you go? It also influences our society, believe it or not. If you were talking to your friend at lunch and you're talking about what you're going to do after prom night, it would probably be a pretty honest conversation. But what if you realized Dr. Arnold was standing right between you two, just kind of carefully listening in? You're not going to be too honest about what you're going to do after prom that night. I can guarantee that. It's also a very important issue in the 2016 election. Right now we have candidates like Bernie Sanders who advocate for completely abolishing the NSA, and we have people like Donald Trump, make America so great, who want to expand NSA authority to basically every area of your life. And it really is, it's an interesting topic in my mind, because before I started looking into this, I didn't realize that any time I was sending a text message or I was sending an email to one of my teachers, that the NSA was probably going to be getting a copy of that. I didn't realize there was a secretive court out there that I've never heard of and a lot of other Americans have not heard of that are governing this. I'm also pretty scared by the fact that Congress doesn't know how these programs work. If you're approving something, you better know how it works. And I also thought it was pretty interesting because the main leaker of all this information, Edward Snowden, was immediately branded as a traitor. People wanted to charge him with treason, which could include the death penalty in some circumstances. And this is also an issue where Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul agree. If you're familiar with politics, these guys don't agree on anything. So, I'd like to talk to you now about my project. And my project's focus was to review laws that are currently pertain to domestic surveillance. And I wanted to specifically look at surveillance of personal communications because government surveillance is such a big, broad topic. And quite frankly, I only really had a semester to do this. I wanted to look at how these laws are used by our government, and I wanted to examine the privacy versus security debate and kind of see what the real kind of balance we need was. And then I also wanted, for my project, to propose ideas for how we better respect privacy. So, why would I want to choose such a big topic like this? For anyone who knows me, I'm very interested in politics, and it's really a passion of mine. I'll actually be studying political science and public policy next year. In addition, I saw a lot of connections to governments and literature. Great literature, but I don't want to live in the kind of societies these books discuss, like the Orwellian 1984, or Fahrenheit 451, where they're burning any book that the government doesn't approve of. I also, anytime there's a controversy, I really want to understand controversy. I like being controversial. And I feel a lack of good media coverage on this. They cover, oh, Snowden did this, and they cover Snowden as a person. But what about the information that he revealed? What about the programs that he revealed? What about those programs' significance? And I also feel like there's a lack of young people who don't understand this issue. I didn't understand this issue. I didn't know what was going on. And I'm a pretty politically minded person. So if you don't have any interest in politics whatsoever, unfortunately, you probably, I won't doubt you, but you might not know what's going on. So my original idea, I was a little bit narrow-minded at first. I wanted to basically just look at the Edward Snowden leaks and just the information that he revealed. And I wanted to understand whether or not Snowden was or was not a traitor. And I was going to just present an argument for why or why not on the treason charge. And that would have been done. They don't do a great job. You know, if they have a copy of everyone's email, you think maybe they have Hillary Clinton's email somewhere? Or maybe those Wall Street transcripts that Bernie's been looking for? In addition, I want to look at how, who oversees government surveillance programs, and if there was any body that was seeing when these programs got out of hand and kind of putting their foot down. And then I wanted to look at how these laws could be adapted. So let's talk about how I kind of created this. Step one, research. And the research was really the bulk of my my time. All the way back in kind of, I believe it was kind of like mid-October, I really started getting into this surveillance topic. And at the time when I was focused just on Snowden, I met with innovation history teacher, Ms. Barnes, and she gave me tons of articles about Edward Snowden, and also kind of looking at the constitutionality of what he revealed in a few court cases that had popped up. And even when I changed my topic, they were still very useful because a lot of those articles talked about the laws, talked about constitutionality. I also had to find sources from across the political spectrum, which is difficult because I feel I kind of had a preconceived notion about what this was, and so I kind of only wanted to focus on building my own argument, but I did have to take other arguments into consideration. And for this, I had to identify the biases of the authors and the publications that they came from, and I wanted to ensure that I had a balance of both pro and anti-surveillance articles. Step two, I created an outline. I chose to start with kind of hooking the audience in with the FBI versus Apple lawsuit about the FBI suing Apple to gain access to the iPhone of the San Bernardino terrorists. I wanted then to kind of emphasize to my audience the importance of surveillance law. I wanted to talk about controversy surrounding these laws and the NSA's current ability. I wanted to discuss the 2001 USA Patriot Act, discuss relevant executive orders, discuss FISA Amendments Act Section 702, and then oversight of surveillance, and then make my proposal on how we make these laws better. Step three was identifying the useful information, because I had pages of notes, and actually in this binder, which I'll pass around in a minute, I have over 40 pages of notes, and that's after I put them back into single space and deleted any unnecessary spaces. And I also had over 50 sources on my bibliography. And so I had to identify which laws were the most controversial and which ones impact U.S. citizens the most. I need that to be nice. You never know. Probably not. And I also feel like I now kind of have a clear understanding of surveillance laws and the problems that are associated with them. And I believe that there was an exponential growth from my first rehearsal presentation to my final presentation. Some topic takeaways. I'm very concerned still about what the NSA has access to. The government has acted undoubtedly unconstitutionally in my mind. I absolutely believe that the NSA and their, the Dishfire program, which looks at text messages, PRISM, which looks at all the online communications, absolutely violate the Fourth Amendment. In addition to the sneak and peek warrants, violate the Fourth Amendment. And I believe that we have to make significant reforms. And in my presentation, I addressed those reforms as being really reforms focused on the oversight body itself. believing that that could really be kind of the way you can kind of get both parties to kind of agree to that. And so I proposed, for example, let's make every justice who goes on this court have to go through Congress rather than just being unilaterally chosen by one person. I also proposed making all court rulings public after 1 year, because I believe after 1 year, that should become public information. And there are processes where if it absolutely has to remain classified, it can. And I would also allow for individuals to challenge their cases before this court, because right now the only people who can challenge surveillance orders before the court are corporations. So that's not exactly good, but you know what? When Mitt Romney said corporations are people, I guess that's kind of what he meant. I don't know. It sure seems like it. And I also believe, too, that I'm very passionate about surveillance policy, and I'm not going to vote for any candidates in this upcoming election who don't want to make significant reforms to surveillance policy. And look, I believe personally that protecting personal liberty is the best way that we can make America great again. Because those are... Bill of Rights is what makes this country special. All 10 of those amendments. So, just some personal takeaways. I really feel like I did a great job, really did a good job improving with strategic planning, because I really had from October, kind of informally, until kind of January in a very formal setting to work on this project. So I really had to map out what it was I wanted to do, what my vision was, and then go out there and get that information. And I had deadlines along the way. I had reflection assignments that were due. I had deadlines that I had to meet for this project. And I learned how to manage a very heavy workload over a several-month span because of this. In addition, I feel like I do a much better job now recognizing biases in the media, whether that be from publishers themselves or looking at an article and recognizing the bias of the author's writing with, which is very important because there's no really, right now, any straight news out there unless you watch PBS. So you have to understand the biases that are in the article. Otherwise, your belief on something is going to be skewed one way or the other. I also feel like I did a great job learning how to build a very strong argument and really kind of taking criticism to rebuild stronger. I don't take criticism well. I really do think I'm the best a lot of the time. And to get an email like right after that presentation was over with so many things I had to change and spend the next week working on, I kind of had to put that as, rather than get angry that I was being criticized, I had to take that criticism and be like, I'm going to prove you wrong, Ms. Olson. I'm going to address every single bullet point that I had, the criticism, and just kind of properly condensing information, making sure I leave out irrelevant information, and how to make a presentation, more interesting. And, you really want to hook your audience. The first 5 to 10 minutes, that's when you have them. I can already tell right now you're probably zoning out a little bit. So that kind of wraps it up. Please clap.